Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to build this calculator app in Flutter. So this is a basic calculator that does basic math. As you can see, we can do some math just like that, or we can delete numbers one by one, or we can clear everything. You can find the percentage of a number and things like that. So we are going to build this calculator app and try to add as many functionalities as possible. So, and then after that, you can work on it and improve that to your preference. All right. By the way, you can find the source code for this calculator in the description. I'll leave the link there. So let's get started. Let's open up our terminal and create our Flutter project. For that, we can run Flutter create command line with the name of our application. So the name of the application will be calculator. Okay, so you can change this name to whatever name you want. If I run it, it should create the default Flutter counter app project in a second. So now we're done. We can change the current directory to the newly created project directory. For that, we can use cd dot the name of the folder, that is calculator. So now I can open this project inside my VS Code using this code dot command line. Once the project is open, you can come to this lib folder, and inside there we have main.dart file, and here we have our default Flutter counter app. So we can actually check it on our emulator. So as you can see, I have Flutter emulator is selected. I can open that up. So now if I make this smaller and run the app, you should see the usual Flutter counter app. So here we have the app that is running. So this is a counter app as usual. Depending on your Flutter version, the UI might look a little bit different, but the functionality is the same for this application. Okay, now we don't need this app, so we can actually remove the code for this app. So here I can remove my home page widget. So I can remove all of it. And here, let me close this. I want to remove the comments as well, and this one, and we don't have this my home page. We can remove it, and now we are left with only main function and the my app stateless widget, which has material app. Now we can change the title to our liking, that is calculator. Okay, now for the theme, I want to use dark theme, so theme.dark, and for home property I will create a new widget that is going to be calculator screen. Okay, so we will create this in a new file. Let's open up our lib folder again, and inside there I want to create a new file. The name of that file will be calculator screen. Okay, screen.dart. Here I want to create a new stateful widget. Stateful widget. So the name of this widget will be calculator screen, as we define it inside our main.dart file for home property of material app. Okay, now we have this calculator screen stateful widget, and we can actually import that here. If I import it, our error should go away. Okay, just like that. We can change this to const, just like that. As you can see here, we don't have any error, and we can save it, and we can come here, we can save this one as well. If we save it, now we are left with this black screen. Okay, because we don't have any scaffold defined inside our calculator screen yet. So I can close this main.dart file. For now, we don't need it. Now we can start building our UI. So first of all, I want to return a scaffold from this build function. If I save it, now we have dark gray screen because we set our material app theme data to dark theme. So scaffold has body property. So we set this body property value to column. Okay, just like that, because column will enable us to have multiple widgets inside one widget. So I want to divide the UI into two sections. One is output and second is buttons. Okay, let's write some comments. First one output, and second one is going to be buttons, just like that. So for the output, I'm going to have text widget, and for the value, I'll set this to 0 as hard-coded value for now. If I save it, now you can see 0 at the top, but there's an issue with it. As you can see, it's under this Android top status bar. I don't want this to be under this app bar. If you want to avoid your widgets to go under operating system UI, you can actually wrap your widget with safe area widget. This will prevent from that kind of issue, okay? So here, as you can see, 0 is under this top app bar. I don't want this functionality to be applied to the bottom part. That's why I can use this bottom property and set it to false, just like that. Now let's style our output text widget. So text style and text style of, I want to give this font size, and font size is going to be 48, and let's give this font weight as well, and font weight is going to be font weight bold. If I save it, now we have big text, okay? So I want to position this widget to the right, and also I want to actually give some padding. Let's do that. First of all, let's give this text widget text align, okay? Text align property and text align of end. We can do that. And let's wrap this text with container widget because I want to give this alignment and padding together. I can wrap it with container and I can give this alignment of that should be bottom right, because I want to actually position this at the bottom, somewhere right here. When we have our second section, the bottom for this widget is going to be somewhere around here, okay? So let's give this padding as well. Edge insets of all, let's give this 16. I can save it. As you can see, it's positioned at the right side. Let's set it. Let's make it this const, okay? Let's make this text style const as well, just like that. So now, sometimes the output might be long and multi-line, okay? I'll show you what I mean actually. So if we give this a lot of zeros, just like that, it will actually go to this kind of new line, as you can see, just like this. If we have the result that is long and multi-line, it might actually be overflow. We want to avoid from that kind of issue, and we want to make this output section to be scrollable, okay? For that, we can actually wrap our widget with a scroll widget, and that is single child scroll view, just like that. And if you are using scroll view widget, you want to wrap your widget with expanded or flexible, because this actually requires some size when it's used inside column or row, okay? You can wrap it with widget, and that is going to be expanded, just like that, okay? And also we want our output area to take up as much space as possible. So we can remove unnecessary zeros, just like that. Now we are actually done with output section, and we can move to button section. For our button section, I want to use wrap widget, because this also enables us to have multiple widgets inside one widget. So now I want to create a new file inside which we will have a new class which has all of our operands and numbers, okay? That will actually make it easier for us to use any operand or any number whenever we need them. Instead of using like multiply cyan as a string, we can actually grab it from that class. So here I'll come inside to this lib folder. Inside that, let's create a file with the name of button values.dart, just like that. And here I already created that class. I'll copy it from my notes, just like that. I copy it and paste it here, and now I'll explain it. So here, as you can see, this is a btn class, and inside that we have all of our operands, divide, multiply, add, subtract, all of them, and numbers as well. This will be our button values, and here is a list of button values, and these are actually ordered at the correct order for our exact use case. Now you'll actually see what I mean when we display them here on the UI. I can save it and I can close this file. So here we can use our btn class and btn dot button values. This is a list. This is coming from here, and we can actually map through that. And for each value here that coming from this button values list, we can create a new widget. Okay, so for now we can return our method. We'll create a new method. The name of the method will be build button. Okay, and we pass our value to that method. So let's actually change this to list, because this is just iterable. When we map through it and return values, it will be iterable, not list. But this children actually accepts list only. So now we need to create our build button method, and I'll come down here, and here I'll create a new method or function, and from this I'll return a widget. So for now, let's return text so that we can see what we are returning from this. And if I save it, as you can see at the bottom, we have this list of string button values. All of them are stacked together at the bottom. So now let's design it a little bit so that we can see them properly. So let's wrap this build button with a sized box. Let's give each button a sized box, just like that, and save it. And we can give this first width, not like that, width and height. Okay, so both of these properties is going to be dynamic. So I actually get a screen size first of all, because I want to make the button value to be responsive, not button value, button size to be responsive based on the UI. So we can actually get screen size by using media query, just like that, media query, just like that. Okay, and of context and size. This will give us screen size. Okay, now we can actually not screen but size. We can use this screen size whenever we need them. So first of all, we use it here, screen size dot width, screen width, and I want to place 4 buttons per row. Okay, I can divide it, and for the screen height I'll use screen size width, but I want to divide it by 5, not 4. Okay, so as you can see, we have screen just like this. Now we can start designing each of our buttons. Before moving on to that, I have one quick question for you as a challenge. Here you can see this 0 is displayed at the top right, but if you come up here, we actually set the alignment to the bottom right. Why isn't this 0 being displayed at the bottom right but here? Because this section is taking up this whole space, and this is the height of it. What we wanted was to display this 0 here at the bottom right. Why is this the case? Please try to answer this question in the comment section. Pause the video, write your comment before I'll show you the exact answer. I hope you figured that out pretty easily. So the reason is because we have this reverse property of this single child scroll view. If we set this to true, and if I save it, now we have this 0 that is displayed at the bottom right. So by default, this single child scroll view actually starts to scroll from top. Okay, the scroll view starts from top to bottom, and if you set this reverse to true, it starts from bottom to top. That is the theory here. That is why we have this 0 that is displayed at the top right. Okay, now we are done with it, and we can actually come here, build button method, and it's actually here created. So I want to make this just like that, and now we can actually design our buttons. First, let's wrap our text with center widget, because I want to make each value to be centered. Wrap it with center. If I save it, now each value, each string value is centered at the center of each button. So let's wrap this with inkwell, because we want to make the button to be tappable. That is the whole purpose of having button. So let's use onTap, and for the onTap we want to use just empty method for now, and let's wrap this inkwell with material widget to give this some styling and have that splash effect properly as well. So for that we use shape property of material widget, and this takes outline input border, and this outline input border have border radius property. So for border radius I want to use border radius circular, and the value will be 100. If I save it, now we have buttons that are rounded just like that and have some border as well. Let's change border color to white actually. Border side, and for the border side it has color property, and I want to use white color with a specific shade, and that is colors white of 24. This is the exact color I want to use, and make it const. Now we have buttons. If we tap on them, you can see that that's not what we want. We want to make this splash effect not to go out of this circular border. Okay, for that this material has a clip property, clip behavior property, and we can set this clip to hard edge just like that. If I save it, now if I tap on it, you can see each button the splash effect is not going outside this border. So next thing what we want to do is to wrap this material app with padding, because we want to make each button to be separate from each other, to have some space between them. So we can wrap it with padding, and for the padding I can give, I think 4 should be enough, just like that. Yeah, 4 is enough. And now last thing is, actually let's give specific buttons specific colors. Okay, we want to group buttons with different colors. So first of all, let's come here, set color, and for the color we want to give color based on this value that is coming to this button. The first one will be these two, delete and clear buttons. So I can have list, and I can use btn class, the one we created earlier, and I can use delete, and the next one btn dot clear. This one, this is clear, and if you want to see what this is, actually, if you forgot that, yeah, here, this one, clear, delete, all of them. We can actually easily use it with btn dot clear, delete, and things like that. Okay, that's why we created this btn class. So now I can say dot contains value, and now I'm checking if this value is equal to one of these. Then I want to set the if that's the case, I want to set the color colors. Let me check my color. Actually, I defined the colors here. So button border, I set that one, delete and clear, and that's going to be blue gray. Okay, this is the color I want to use. Let me put it somewhere here. Blue gray, right? Blue gray, else I have another condition, and now I set these two of them to blue gray, and I want to set these operands, these ones, to a different color. So next one, I want to check if the value is equal to one of these. So I'll create another list, and this list is going to be btn dot, the first one will be percent, if this is percentage, and the next one btn dot if this is multiply, right? And the next one, let me save it like that so that you can see it properly. So this is the next one, if this is percentage, if this is multiply, and copy paste. And next one, if this is add, right? And copy paste again. If this is subtract, and one of them, and if this is divide as well, we want to consider divide, and the last one is going to be if that is actually calculate. Okay, that's this calculate is equal to that equal sign. Okay, and dot contains, if that contains value, that this is button value coming from that list of button values. If that's the case, we want to set the color here. As you can see, I set operands, that is going to be orange. I want to set this to orange. In other cases, so now we have our buttons, these numbers, the left, the rest of the buttons are just numbers. So numbers are going to be just black 87. Okay, that's the last case. I can close this. Now if I save it, now we have buttons. You can see that are styled properly. So instead of putting all of them here, I want to copy all of it, copy it, and come down here. And here I want to create a new function that returns color. Color get btn color. Okay, and we pass that value, button value, and we can actually return this just like that. Okay, now we have this condition, and we can use, instead of all of this, we can use get btn color here, get button color, and we pass our value. And if we save it, we have the same functionality. Now there is something we do not want. Here we have some empty space. We don't want that. We actually want to fill up this space as well. So for that, I want to make this 0 bigger. I want this 0 to take up 2 button spaces. Okay, so for it, we can come up here and change this button size. We'll put some condition here for the width. Okay, let's wrap it with this one, and I can check if this value, right, value equal to btn dot what was that? That was 0, right? And number 0. If this is the case, then I want to set this screen size width of, I want to set it width divided by 2. Otherwise, this will be similar to other buttons. If I save it, now we have 0 that is set to this one. Okay. The last thing is coming to here, and we want to style this one as well, this text and button text as well. So for it, we can change, we can give style and text style of, so text style, let's give this font weight of bold. Okay, I can save that, and let's give this font size as well. I think we can make the font size a little bit bigger, like 24 probably. Let's check it. Okay, this looks fine now, and we can make this const. It's like that. Now we are done with button design as well. We can move on to functionality. Before we move on to functionalities, let's actually change these button values. One of them should be 5, right? I didn't notice it. Maybe you have noticed it already. Let's actually change this to 5. We come here to button values.dart file, and here I want to change this and 5 to 5. Okay, this number 5 should be number 5. If I save it, this should be 5. As you can see, we have the number buttons with the correct values. I can close the file. I can close the sidebar. Now what I want to do is come up here. If you remember, we had this hard-coded value of 0, and it's showing up here. We don't want this to be a hard-coded value. We want to make it dynamic. We want to change it when we actually deal with these buttons, right? So we come up here, and just about this build function, we want to create 3 variables. The first one will be number 1, and it's going to be empty string for now. And I'll copy paste a couple of times. And second one is going to be operand, and third one is going to be number 2. So basically the idea here is that the number 1 always have the values of dot or 0 to 9. Okay, so this is going to be the values this number or one variable is going to have. And for number 2, it's going to be the same, but this one for operand, it is going to have the values of plus, minus, multiply, and then divide. Okay, these are the four values this operand will have. And I come here, down here, and I'll change this to my variable. So first of all, I want to put my number 1 variable, and second one, the middle one, will be our operand, and the third one, the last one, is going to be number 2. All right, so basically this is the left side of our equation, and this is the operator, the operand, that is multiply, divide, minus, or plus, and this number 2 is going to be the right side of our equation. Okay, and now in this case I want to check if all of these 3 variables is empty. If that's the case, we want to show something here, right? So let's check it. If that is empty, if the resulting string value is empty, then we want to show just 0. Or else, if this is not empty, we want to actually display this string as it is. Okay, if I save it, nothing will change because our variable values are empty. That's why we have 0. If you come up here, we have empty variables. So now I can come down here inside our build button function. We have this inkwell, and this actually every time we tap on any button, this inkwell's on tap property is going to be called. Okay, so here I want to assign a arrow function, and I'll create my own function and assign it to this on tap method of inkwell. So the name of the function on btn tab. Okay, and I want to pass a value of the button that is tapped to this on btn tab function. So this value is coming from here. Okay, so I come down here. Let me actually separate my functions just like that, and I'll create a new function, and the name of the function, as I defined it before, it's going to be on btn tab. Okay, and we receive our value that is coming to this function, and here we are going to deal with each button tap. First of all, let's actually try to show up something here when the button is pressed. So what we can do is we can actually grab our number 1 variable, and we can actually add the value to this number 1. So I'll set the state, and inside this state I'll actually keep appending this coming value to this number 1, and this number 1, if you remember, we defined it above. Okay, now if I actually tap on any button, it is going to update this value. You can see that every button's value is showing up here, even delete and clear, everything. So we don't want to show up everything here as an output. We want to deal with some buttons differently, right? For example, we want to delete or clear things, or we want to calculate and something like that. By checking which button is pressed, we need to assign that value, that coming button value, to one of our 3 variables. If you remember, we have 3 variables, right? That is number 1, and the second one is operand, just like that, operand, and third one is number 2, right? So we have these 3 variables, and based on which button is pressed, we need to create a proper equation, just like that. So let's say number 1, and then operand, and then number 2. So this should look something like, let's say, just like that, and let's say plus, and not number 1, but this should be number 2. Number 2 should be something like, I don't know, just like that. Okay, we need to have some equation looking like this. All right, so for that, we can actually, first of all, we need to check if the tapped button is not a number. User taps on one of these buttons, we can actually deal with it inside this if statement. All right, so for that, I'll check first of all, if value not equal to is not equal to btn dot. Okay, I want to check if that's not dot, and also I want to check if that pressed button is actually not a number. So for that, we can actually use int try parse. We try to parse that value into integer. If it's parsable, then that's a number. If not, this try parse returns null. So we pass our value and we check if that is null. If this is the case, then this is not a number. So what we can do is we can actually deal with non-number button value inside our if statement. So here we need to have another if statement. So for this if statement, we need to check if our operand is not empty, right? Because we are not dealing with a number, we are dealing with a some of these buttons. That's why we need to check if our operand is not empty. And also we need to check if number two is not empty. All right, if this is the case, if our operand is not empty, and then if our number 2 is not empty, that means we already have this equation, proper equation, and we can calculate it. And before actually appending that operand, we want to calculate it and then append that value to our operand. Not append, but assign. All right. So here, what I want to do, I'll just make it to do for now and calculate the equation before, okay, assigning new operand, something like this. So we do it here, and after that, what we want to do is we need to assign that operand here. That new value will be our new operand. Okay, so now you might be thinking, how about this delete, clear, and other percentage buttons? So yeah, we are going to consider that ones as well, but for now we can assume that user tapped on only one of these four. Okay, one of these four buttons or this button. All right, and we'll deal with this equal and percentage and delete, clear buttons after that. We are done with non-number character. Now what we want to do, we want to check if our number, we want to check which variable is empty. Based on that, we can assign that value to our certain variable. Okay, first of all, I want to check if our number 1 variable is empty. If that's the case, first I need to check if operand is empty as well, because let's close this one, body, right? So this means if number 1 is empty and operand is empty, this means we have number 1, this empty, or our operand is also empty, and here number 2, right? So this is the case, but in this case our number 1 could not be empty. That can be like they can be number, but our operand might be empty. If that's the case, we can keep assigning the new number to this. Okay, just like that. If there is a operand here, that means we cannot assign any number to our number 1 variable. So this is the case. So let me actually remove this. And what I want to do here, first of all, we need to actually deal with the dot case here, up here. We checked if our value is not equal to dot. Okay, then if that's the this value equals to dot, this means this if statement is not going to run. It's not going to go inside this if statement, and it comes to here, else if. In that case, we are not checking if that's not dot, right? So here we need to deal with that. So for that, I'll check if value equal to btn dot. Okay, if that's the case, and also I want to check if our number 1 contains btn dot. Okay, I want to check that here. So if that's the case, let's say now we have that number 1, right? Number 1 might be something like 1.2, And this might be the case, right? If that's the case, we don't want to append another dot to this double value. We just want to return from this, okay? And then the next case, if, let's actually copy paste this and change it, okay? It's going to be similar. So we check if button equal to dot again, and we check for number 1. Let's check it. First of all, if number 1 is empty, let's check that one. Or we check if number 1 equal to btn dot. All right, we want to check that here if the tapped button is dot, and let's actually wrap this with braces just like that. If number 1 is empty or number 1 equal to dot. If that's the case, what we want to do is in this case our number 1, right, number 1 might be empty, or that could be 0. Is that right? Yeah, not dot, but this should be n0 if number 1 equals to 0. Okay, this is the case here. If that's the case, what we want to do is change our value, that coming value, to 0 dot. So the idea here is that sometimes the output might be empty, as there is nothing here, or this could be 0, right? In that case, user, the first pressed button can be this dot. If that's the case, we want to change that 0 dot, because we don't want user to see a number something like this. Okay, we want to not something just dot. Okay, that's not what we want. What we want to do is 0 dot, and we can keep assigning other numbers just like that. That's the case. Okay, all right, I hope you get the idea. So we deal with it. So now we are done with number 1, and we can. So at the end of this else if statement, what we want to do after checking all of these 2 if statements, we can actually assign our number 1 a value of that coming value. All right, just like that. Now we are done with number 1 case. Okay, number 1. So if this is not the case, we want to deal with a number 2 case as well. So for that, I can just copy paste all of this, and I can come down here and paste it another else if statement. So for this one, what we want to do is check number 2. If number 2 is not empty, if that's the case, we want to check if operand is not empty as well, because if that's the case, it should actually assign the value to our number 1, right? So we check that if number 2 is empty or operand is not empty. That's the case. Again, we deal with dot case. And here what we want to do, change this to number 2, and then we want to change this number 2 again. We want to change this number 2, right? And this one stays the same, and we change this to number 2. And this 2 is going to be alike, all right? So this is the idea. And at the end of it, after checking all of it, we don't want this one. We can actually remove it, and we can just call that set state. After actually saving it, we can check our conditions. We cannot delete or clear anything yet, so that's why I just restart it. Okay, now let's try to check it. So if I tap on, let's say 7, 8, just like that, as you can see, it keeps appending the number to our number 1 variable. And let's check it. Let's check if that's actually working. I want to tap on this one. You can see it's working, right? So we can actually tap another button, another number. You can see that this is actually appending, right? I hope this is not too confusing for you. So actually, I want to write some comments for you so that this is actually clear for you. Here we can check, first of all, on this one. This is actually operand pressed, right? This is operand pressed. When this goes into this one, this means the operand is pressed. So we need to check if is operand and not dot. Okay, not like that, just like this, not dot. Okay, this is checking for that one. And for else if, I'll do it something like this and assign value to number one variable. All right, this is for that case. And here we are checking, I'll say this is example. For this one, check if value is just like that. Okay, dot. And we can actually make it just like this. We check that one. For this one, this is understandable. I put it here, and we can make this example as well. And for the down part, for number two, it is similar. I'll put that one as well as a comment. So this is number two. All right, and let's check it. And this is dot case as well, just like this. Okay, now I think this is kind of a little bit clearer than before. And here for calculate case, we actually put our function, calculate function here when we created that function. All right, we are actually done with numbers, all of numbers, and dot as well. Okay, we dealt with dot case with all of black buttons. Black buttons are complete. When user taps on them, they work properly. And these four operators as well, right? Multiply, divide, minus, subtract, plus, right? This four and all of these black buttons. Now we need to deal with delete, clear, percentage, and calculate. So let's do that. So first of all, I actually want to take all of these functions, all of them here, okay? I want to copy them, and I'll create a new function here, and the name of the function will be append. Okay, append, let's say append value. All right, and it will take value as parameter. Let's make this string just like this, and I'll paste it here, the same functions, but I put it here inside one new function. Okay, and we can make it just like that, appends value to the end, let's say. So this one on btn tab will have other conditions. First of all, let's put our append value here so that it works as expected. Now let's check if this delete button is pressed. For that, we can check if value equal to btn delete, right? If that's the case, we want to deal with this delete case. So I can create a new function. The name of the function will be delete, and I can return from that. Once this delete button is pressed, we can delete one from this value and return. We don't want to do anything, right? So I'll create this function down here, and this is going to delete one. I'll write a comment, delete one from the end, just like that. And it's void function. We can deal with this delete with if statements. First, we need to check some conditions before we actually delete it. Let's check if number two is not empty actually. Let's check it. If number two is not empty, we want to delete from this variable number two. All right. So for that, we can say number two equal to number two dot substring. We can get substring, and for the start, it will start from the beginning. And for the end, we can use the length of this number two dot length minus one. All right, this is going to subtract our variable. Let's say we have just like this, right? And when we assign this, when we use this substring, starting from 0 and ending at the right before the end, this will look our new number will look something like 1 2 3 2. Okay, this 1 3 will be gone. So this is the case. Now if this is not the case, if number 2 is empty, then we need to check another case. Else if, now we want to check if our operand is not empty. We want to check that one. If operand is not empty, we just remove the operand. Okay, operand equals to just empty string. And the last case, else if, okay, else if This is going to be for number 1, and we want to check number 1. Number 1 is not empty. If that's the case, I'll just copy this number 2 and come down here and change this to number 1, and then number 1, just like this. All right, so basically we want to keep checking from the end. This is number 2. We want to check it. If this is empty, we want to check operand. If that's empty, we want to check number 1, this one. All right, after checking all of it, we actually remove one number, one character from this output. So then at the end we just set state. We call this, and that's it. Now we are done with delete. All right, now I try to actually tap on delete. Okay, as you can see, now we are deleting just like this. That's it. Now we are done with delete. And the next case, I want to check if tapped button, if that value is equal to btn.clear. Okay, I want to check this if this is clear, if this clear button is pressed. So in that case, I'll create another function that will be clear all, and I will return again, because after clear everything, we don't want to do anything else. We just return from this function. So I come down here and I will separate my function like before, and clears all, let's say output. Okay, this is void function again, clear all. Here we can deal with this clear all function pretty easily. We call set state, and we set all of our variables to empty string. Okay, copy paste a couple of times, and then this is going to be operand. Operand will be empty, and number 2 will be empty as well. Okay, I save it. After saving it, I can come here, I can tap on clear. Now you can see everything is gone. All of our number 2 operand and number 1, number 2 and operand variables are empty. Okay, now we have only 2 cases left. One is this percentage. If we tap on it, it will just put it here because we did not check for this condition. And for this equality operator as well, it just puts it here. We don't want that. Okay, so we want to check for these conditions. First, let's actually check for percentage. If value equal to btn dot percentage. If that's the case, we want to create a new function. The name of the function will be convert to percentage, just like this. And we want to return from the function again. Now I will come down here and I'll separate my function like before, and converts output to percentage. And this is void function, the name of the function convert to percentage. And then we can deal with this convert to percentage with some conditions as well. First of all, let's check if number 1 is not empty. Let's check for that. And then we want to check operand is not empty, and the third one will be number 2. If number 2 is not empty, we want to check these ones, because if all of these variables are not empty, that means we already have a equation. Example could be something like 40 plus something like this, right? We already have a proper equation. Before converting this to percentage, we want to calculate it. So that's why here I'll write a comment, calculate before conversion. Okay, and here will be to do, our to do, right? Because we did not create our calculate function yet. We do that one, we calculate it, and we do not return it. We do not return from here yet, because after calculating, we still want to convert that into percentage, right? So that's why we check it if the next condition, if it does not go into this if statement, then we want to check another condition, that is operand, right? If operand is not empty, in this case, if operand is not empty, that means the last one If I delete it, we have something like this, and it looks something like this. All right, our output or input ends with operand. We don't want to convert this into what is it, percentage, right? So we need to deal with this one as well, because it is going to throw an error. So if that's the case, cannot be converted, right? So that's why we just return from it if this is the case. And at last, after passing all of these conditions and checking, changing our value to a proper one, we can actually get our number, right? Final, our number, and this is going to be number 1. In our calculate function, after calculating everything, we always want to set that calculated result into our number one value. All right, that's why we always deal with this number 1 value inside this convert to percentage. Let's say, I'll show you an example. If we calculate it, we have this result, right? Final result, and it's going to be something like number 1, and then operand number 2, right? This is the case. We are dealing with this, and then I come down here. So this is our equation. After that, we are getting our number again, and we are assigning the result to that. This is just like this, all right? So every time we calculate it, this result will be assigned to number 1 variable, the one we created at the beginning of this functionality section. So that's the idea. So that's why we always grab number 1 here. And before converting to percentage, we want to change the string number into actual number, double or integer. In this case, we want to change it to double. We use double parse. So we have this number variable that is changed to double. And now we can set our state. So inside this set state, what we can do is number 1 is going to be equal to our number. Let's actually change it, convert it first. We want to convert that number 1 divided by 100, something like this. All right, we want to do that, not number 1, but this number, this one, this is double, and we want to divide it by 100. In this case, we converted the number to percentage, right? And we want to reset our operand first. That needs to be reset as well, operand, and then number 2 needs to be reset as well, just like this. After that, at the end of conversion, we have a variable we have the variable number 1 with the value, and the rest of the 2 variables will be empty again. All right, now we are done with convert to percentage. Okay, so I can actually remove these ones. Convert to percentage, right? That's the case. So I can delete it. For now, we can actually convert numbers to percentage. If I try this, let me try it. You can see it's converting this to percentage. I can clear it. Let's say we have this number. If I convert it, you can see this is converting it to percentage. So the final button is this equal button. Okay, we are going to deal with this equal button just under this change to, what is it, under percentage. So let's check it. If the button value, the passing button value, equal to btn.calculate, right? This calculate is, if we come here, is equal to this equal button. All right, so if that's the case, we want to calculate our result. Calculate a new function. I want to create a new function, and after calculating it, I will return from that, because after calculating, we don't want to do anything, right? So we can create a new function down here again. I'll come down here and I'll separate my function like others and calculates the result. All right, so it's going to be a void function again, and the name of the function is calculate, and then we can have some conditions here so that we can calculate the result properly. In order to calculate our result, we need to have our 3 variables with proper values. because we want to have a proper statement so that we can calculate our result, right? So that's why we need to check each of our variable for their value. First of all, we will check if number 1 is empty. If that is empty, we just return from this function because we cannot calculate our result. If, let's copy paste this if statement a couple of times. If operand is empty, we return from this function. Again, we cannot calculate it. Then for number 2, we do the same. If here we can pass from these 3 conditions, then we can go ahead calculate our result. So now I want to create 3 variables. First one is our number 1 variable's double version. So num1 equal to double parse. Double parse, we can pass our number 1 variable. So this is going to be the double version of our number 1 variable. Okay, and we'll do the same for number 2. This is going to be num2. So number 2, right? And then the last one will be the third variable is going to be our result variable. So this will keep track of our result. So that's it. So we can make these 2 variables final as well, just like this. Now, just under result variable, I can create switch statement, right? So in the switch statement, what I want to do is first of all pass our operand. So I'll pass our operand and check if that operand, first of all, is btn.add. If that's add, we need to add our 2 numbers. So we can add our num1 plus num2, right? And we need to assign that to our result variable, just like this. Then if that's not add, we'll check for subtract. If that is subtract, we just subtract our number 2 from number 1. And for the third case, we will check for multiply. If that is multiply, then we can actually multiply these 2 numbers. And for the last case, that is divide. For divide, we just divide our 2 numbers, just like this. And for default, we can leave it as it is because we dealt with all of 4 operands. So then outside this switch statement, what I want to do, I want to call set state. So inside this set state, I will assign result variable to my number 1 variable. Okay, use result. We cannot assign result directly to our number 1 because this is double and this is string. So that's why we can wrap it with double quotes, just like this. Now we have a string version of our result. And then there is one case we need to consider. So let me clear this. Let's say sometimes when you calculate, your result might look like something like this. And in this case, we want to show the whole number, not the point part, right? That's why we can remove this dot 0. So for that, we will check if our number 1 ends with, if it ends with dot 0, then we will modify our number 1 variable. So we can grab our number 1 and assign number 1 substring, start from 0 and end with number 1 length minus 2. Okay, so basically this is going to remove the last 2 characters at the end of our string. So that is the case. And then after that, outside of this if statement, we want to reset our operand and number 2 variables. We can make them just empty string, just like this, and this one is going to be number 2. If you remember, I mentioned it earlier that every time we calculate our result, we always assign our variable to our result value to our number 1 variable, because we want to make operand and number 2 variables ready for another equation or another statement. User might want to, let's say, have this result and might want to keep calculating, again pressing on this one and keep going just like that, right? If that's the case, we want to make our variables ready for new values. So that's the idea. So, oops, I can save it now, and then let's actually hot restart it so that everything works just fine. Okay, so now let's try it. If we do that, let's -2, just like that, and we can divide it by 5, let's say. Okay, so multiply it by 5, not bad. Okay, I hope the the result is correct. I tried to consider everything I could think of. All right, so if there is a bug or anything, please try to fix it and write your comment in the comment section. So there is 2 more cases we need to consider here. The last one, if you remember, we left 2 to-dos. So the first one was inside our convert to percentage, right? If we come into that function here, before converting our output or input into percentage, we need to check if that's a proper statement, something similar to that, right? If there is already statement, let's say just like that, we want to calculate it first and then convert it to percentage. That's why if this condition is true, then we need to call our calculate function here, just like this. All right, I save it. Now, if I try to tap on this percentage, it calculates the result and then creates a percentage. Okay, and there is another one to do left. So it was in append value. Here, if you remember, if this condition is true, that means user tapped on operand, right? And then inside that, we need to check if there is already an operand, meaning if there is already a proper statement, something like that, right? If that's the case, we want to calculate our result inside here, inside this to do, right? Calculate our result, and then we can assign that operand a new value, the value that passed to our function. Okay, so here I can save it. Now if I try to let's say tap on operand again, we already have this one operand. I can tap on this operand. If I tap on it, it calculates the result, and then it will put the operand at the end again, and we can keep calculating more results just like that, and we can tap on this, and that is our result. All right, you can see that you can improve this calculator way more than this. For example, there is a too long decimal point here, you can make it shorter, and also it doesn't work with negative numbers yet, so you can actually create a function to work with negative numbers as well. So for all of these functions, you can find the source code. You can find the link in the description. I'll leave it there. I hope this video is useful for you. If that's the case, smash that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. See you in the next video.